A very good day to all our viewers. Today we have Naren, the founder of Equa Marketing, known internationally for innovative ideas and implementation that propels medical practices to success. So his topic for today is marketing to doctors in a web-centric world. In this energetic exchange, he will discuss how the internet has changed the way consumers, including medical professionals, make purchase decisions, how to adapt marketing strategies to succeed in this environment, and tips for seamlessly switching from a one-on-one to an internet sales approach. If you may have any questions or feedback, feel free to post it on our Q&A section. We will have small breaks in between to address them. And you can always post questions right after the presentation, and we will make sure you get to yours. And now, for what we have all been waiting for. Naren, over to you.
Thank you, Dilimi. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me and do this presentation based on a lot of people asking about this topic. Just a little bit about the topic today and myself. We are going to focus on companies that market to doctors. So you could be a service provider, maybe even an attorney or an accountant. You could be a company that manufactures a laser machine that doctors buy. In terms of myself, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started a few businesses. Equa is one of our success stories. It's a very successful marketing firm that caters to doctors. Also, entrepreneur.md. I'm proud, to be associated with entrepreneur.md. So the scope of today's presentation is, specifically targeting CEOs, marketers, and sales executives who work for companies that sell to doctors. So we are really focusing on the internet, and in this internet-centric world, how would we evolve? How would you evolve or adapt what you do to maximize results from marketing? So before I dive in, I want to make sure that you know that you can ask questions throughout the presentation. You can post your questions, and we will have breaks along the way where those questions would be addressed plus at the end. So I want to make sure this is interactive and helpful to people. And also this presentation was based on a lot of questions we got from people, so hopefully we would be answering a lot of the questions you might already have. The very first slide talks about understanding the web-centric world we live in. And in terms of an agenda, I want to focus on a few main things. To be exact, 7 key points. One is what's called zero moment of truth. You could Google it and you can learn more about it, but we'll get into that. Second is this fundamental shift in how consumers buy. In the old days, people were sold things. In today's information-rich, internet-centric world we live in, people buy things based on research, based on information. Also, reviews have become extremely important. I'm sure you've heard of the story about ASUS, a company that made motherboards that nobody ever heard of, all of a sudden came into the US market and became one of the top providers of laptops just based on the reviews they got from notable people as well as from the users. So the power of brands are becoming less and less in the internet-centric world we live in because information is so freely available. So we're going to spend some time on that. Mobile. As you know, more internet is used today through mobile devices than from computers, and people don't think of computer as this other thing. Rather, it's something that lives with you, that that you wake up with. And mobile had fundamentally made that change, especially iPhone and all the things that happened after that. You're also going to touch on social media, and does it make sense? Should it make sense in your marketing strategy, and how you could think about it? Also, automated marketing. That's also a very important topic. Automated marketing in a nutshell is the idea that instead of talking to one person at a time, you can talk to hundreds or thousands of people at a time. And because if computers are smart enough to know what's going on with each person, the marketing is customized to each person. Analytics. Analytics is, in the old days, the famous saying is that I don't know which half of my marketing works. That's a saying by the VP of marketing for Procter & Gamble, but I know half of my marketing works. Now you don't have to do that. You can really watch what's going on, and you can literally pinpoint even to a particular customer as to what's going on. So analytics is really important, so we're going to touch on that as well. So I think just to set the stage correctly, I want to kind of start with how things are done in the traditional world and how things have been done historically. For the longest time, even today, in many cases, a lot of companies that market to doctors haven't really caught up with the internet. So they still pretty much rely on traditional marketing. And to me, that's either face-to-face meetings, meaning they have large teams of salespeople who, drive hours and hours to meet clients and spend time with clients. Or the smaller companies, rely a lot on conferences and events. So they have people flying to conferences so that they could, say hi to one of their clients at least once a year. So that's how historically things have been done. But those don't work anymore, because there are much more effective methods where you can almost get the same results for pennies on the dollar. Now, in some sense, not only does the new model give you advantages, that's sometimes even 50 times the kind of results you could get spending the same amount of money using the old model, but also I do believe that the old model has stopped working. Because as you know, how many of us watch ads on TV anymore? Most of us, watch, pay cable, and a lot of pay cable, there's no advertising like HBO and stuff. And also with TiVo and a lot of these web TV, people are not sitting there watching 60-minute program with 20 minutes of ads. So like Netflix, I'm sure you've seen that House of Cards program, right? So fundamentally, people are not wasting their time listening to or watching to ads that they're not interested in. The only exception I still see is the Super Bowl, just because those ads are done, in a creative way and it's entertaining. But other than those types of mega events, ads don't work anymore. So any type of push marketing, I don't think works anymore. And part of the other reason why that's happening is in the old days, people didn't have any information, so they made decisions without information, like just by looking at an ad. But now the average amount of information somebody looks at to choose a product or service is 10.4. That was 2 years old. And I've heard right now the number is even as high as 15. Doctors are people too, so just like doctors make decisions about their daily lives as to where to send their kids to school, or where to go for an Italian meal, and they look at reviews and they look at information online. They are doing the same thing when it comes to choosing products and services they need to run their businesses. So in this world of people buying versus being sold, the old model of I'll talk to somebody once a year, I will have a salesperson who drives and says hi to these people for a couple of minutes, those don't work as well as they used to, because people are overwhelmed with information. And I mean, as you all know, marketing is typically subconscious. So the power of being in front of them again and again and again without them even realizing you're marketing to them is extremely powerful. So the smart companies, whether it's small or large, your size doesn't matter anymore. Somebody can start a business with almost no money these days because of the internet. In this world, it's really important how often you are in front of your clients. One of the other key things I just wanted to get it out there is because I still feel that a lot of people don't realize that the world had changed, and they ask the wrong questions. And some things have changed 10 years ago and still people are asking the wrong questions. Other things have changed in the last year or two, and obviously they haven't caught up. So one of the number one questions that I think that trips people up, because if you ask the wrong questions, you always get the wrong answer, is how did you find out about us? Because that implicitly says there was one person who's responsible for that new customer. So if you ask the wrong question, you're going to get the wrong answer. So, having worked with doctors, for example, and doing marketing for them, I see this a lot, especially with older doctors. And I see the same thing with companies, is that they somehow have a really hard time stopping to ask the wrong question. So a lot of times they'll ask the receptionist, oh, how did this person hear about us? And it's a wrong question to ask, because that means you're going to ignore everything else and just focus on that one thing. And in a world where people are looking at 10 to 15 pieces of information before they make a choice, that doesn't work anymore. What is my keyword ranking? That used to be a good question up until recently, but the problem is now we are in the world in the day of personalized search, which means Google is customizing the results people see based on their search preference, based on their device, based on their location. So, for example, if you were to ask Google, things to do on a rainy day, technically, if Google is smart enough, it should tell you, today you may want. I mean, it shouldn't suggest things that you could do outdoors on a rainy day, right? So Google is moving in that direction, and also Google knows a lot about you. They have a lot of your search history. So if Google notices you are somebody who's into biking, if Google is smart enough, it should start showing more things to do with biking, right? So that's where we're getting into. So by figuring out what your keyword rank, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot because the results will change from person to person. Instead, you should rely on Google Analytics, which shows what your keyword rank is for particular keywords for everybody. So they'll show you the average rank. So there are new tools you can use. Another misconception I think people have about social media, for example. They look at social media the same way they look at any other type of marketing, and it's the biggest mistake they can make. Because social media is never about you, it's about them. It's about them being social with their friends. So in that world, if you start going in there and promoting yourself and promoting your products, it's going to really backfire. It's going to backfire in a bunch of ways. One, it's going to turn people off, and Facebook, being smart, realizes that nobody reads your messages. They'll start hiding your messages. And also, I think it doesn't have the desired effect of social media, which is all about viral marketing. So your goal should be to engage them. So, one of the companies that does social media really well is Old Spice. They have these funny commercials. There's nothing to do with the product they sell, but because it's entertainment, a lot of people share it with their friends and so forth and so forth, and they create millions and millions and millions of eyeballs without paying a dime for advertising. Now let me tell you the good news. I think one of the key things that the internet has done is it had really evened the playing field. In the old days, the Goliath had a lot of power and a lot of strength, but those are dead. Now it's all about ideas, and it's all about how nimble and how fast you move. So so the good news is, as a small business or a medium-sized business, you can be better at marketing than even a billion-dollar company with $1 billion marketing budget. And we're going to get into some of the examples of how to do that. So I'm going to give you some stories, right? Because a lot of times it's very easy to understand something when you see somebody else doing it. So I'm going to kind of use some of my examples that I'm familiar with. Like for example, I run the business called Equa, which is a marketing company for doctors, and we want doctors to call us. We don't want to have booths or advertise, because we just don't believe in those things. So we systematically spend a lot of time in making that happen. So we have a database of 9,000 doctors, and those doctors hear from us every single week. They download our books, they use our infographics, they engage with us, and some of these doctors have engaged with us 7, 8 times, and sometimes they're only buying from us maybe a year down the road. But the fact that they can engage with us and they can be involved with us makes a big difference in helping us convert them. Personal interactions. Let's say you're sending somebody to a meeting, or you're sending your team to a meeting. On average, it's going to cost you $300 every time somebody says hi and has a meaningful conversation with the doctor. The numbers are pretty much similar even when you have a direct sales force, because you have to look at time and all of the other factors. So to me, that's like watering a plant the old-fashioned way with a small watering pot. But with technology, you can set up a sprinkler system. You don't even need people. You don't need 100 people. Rather, the sprinkler system could automatically take care of it at a certain time, and the cost, if you look at the cost of the people, could be almost $1 per interaction. In other words, there is a 300:1 difference, because the other one costs $300 an interaction. This one is costing $1 an interaction. Another example I want to share with you is about being at the right place at the right time. Old paradigm, right, is that you put a TV ad or any kind of an ad, even in a magazine, And the theory went that at any given time, 3% of the people are looking to switch. So 3% of the people are looking for a new, dermatologist, 3% of the people are looking for a new laser, and so forth. So the idea is that if you put your ad in front of everybody, the 100, then those 3 will call, and those 3 will be enough to pay for the other 100. But now the new paradigm is you forget about the other 97 and stop annoying them. Focus on the 3% who is interested in your service, and go ahead and offer that. Another example that I want to talk about is online reputation. It's really important. I gave you the story of ASUS, which was a study on Harvard Business Review, one of their recent articles, where with zero brand awareness, they came into the U.S. market and they became one of the top players in the laptop and netbook space, all based on online reputation. But they were smart about it. They actually worked on it. They actually played it to their advantage. Obviously, you have to make a good product, otherwise you can't fool people forever. So that goes without saying. But once you have the good product, then you need to have a strategy to how do you leverage that quality or that set of features you have. And almost 9 out of 10 people are not buying anything these days without some type of recommendation, not from their friend, but rather from the crowd, rather from the internet. So when they Google you or Google your product and they see a lot of people saying great things, that really helps in convincing them to, to pull that final trigger and, go ahead and buy your product. And I can tell you lots of examples of this. Like, I see this in medicine where a lot of doctors who have paid attention to this doing amazingly well versus people who haven't. I've seen this in our business. Every one of our clients, before they call us, they're already sold because they see the success our other clients are having, and we make it a point to share testimonials and videos and so forth. So it really helps to focus on reputation. Any questions, Dilimi, so far?
Naren, no questions so far, but I have a couple for you, in fact. Regarding the doctors buy versus
Dilimi?
Yes, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I lost you for a second. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. My question to you is, our sales representatives are trained to sell to doctors, and we have always sold.
Dilimi, can you do me a favor? Because I'm having some issues hearing you. Can you post that question in my window on Google Hangout, please?
Sure thing. Sure thing. Yes.
Yeah, the question is this. Does ZMOD is the zero moment of truth, I'll explain what that means, really work even for medical device or medical supply vendors who sell relatively more expensive products than what are typically sold on e-commerce website? Great question. ZMOD stands for zero moment of truth, and let me take a couple of minutes to explain it. You could Google it and learn a lot about it, but really what it means is in the old days before the internet, the very first moment of truth for a customer is where the very first time they saw an ad. So if the customer was in one of those 3% who's actually looking to make a change right now, those 3% would engage with the ad and call the company. Let's say you're selling cars, would call the car dealership or come by the car dealership. But now what science and research shows when it comes to marketing is that there's something called a zero moment of truth even before the first moment of truth, and the first moment of truth has almost become irrelevant. is that people are researching. So if I'm interested in changing my car, I start researching cars and I start learning about cars, and in the process I narrow down what I want on my own without ever talking to a salesperson. So the second moment of truth, when I'm interacting with the salesperson at the car dealership, I have already made up my mind with the help of the zero moment of truth when I'm doing research. So I know I want a SUV that gives me this kind of mileage and so forth and so forth. So by the time I walk into the car dealership, I know the name, the model, and the price of the car, and I'm only going there to complete the transaction. So the idea is that as marketers, we need to focus on the zero moment of truth because how consumers are behaving. We need to be there when they're doing the research. That means we need to show up and we need to do really well there. Plus, we need to manage what they see. So the reviews, the testimonials, the videos, all of those things. So when they're on their own making up their minds, which is not how things used to be done, we have an advantage. So the question is, okay, does zero moment of truth really work if you are a medical device company, right? Because you sell high-end products. I do believe it does, because at the heart, doctors are consumers. Doctors are people. So, if I eat lunch a certain way at home, I'm going to be eating lunch pretty much the same way, even during working hours. You know what I mean? I'm not necessarily going to totally behave one way at home and behave a different way, at the office, because, we are creatures of habit. If we wake up for our alarm on our mobile phone, that's kind of what we're going to do even when we're on a trip. We're not going to take some other device when we're on a trip. We're going to do the same thing. So I do think people are researching, because I do think, the idea of people buying things from a brand for the sake of the brand is becoming less and less and less, and people are making up their own minds because information is so easily available. So I absolutely do believe that, let's assume you are a company that sells lasers, and there are many companies that sell lasers. Doctors see articles here or articles there, or they might, if they're seriously interested, because a lot of people are coming to them asking about fat melting, they're doing research, and they're figuring these things out. So when they're doing research on their own and figuring these things out, you need to be there, because you need to focus on that 3% who are actively thinking about your product. So I absolutely believe zero moment of truth actually does work, because if you think about it, Equa is one of those products, right? I mean, the people who sign up with Equa, they are spending minimum $1,000 a month. So over a 5-year period, some could even spend $300,000 a month in 5 years. So that's a lot of money for anybody. So it's just like buying a medical equipment. So I think even with Equa, I know for a fact, before they even pick up the phone and call us, they do a ton of research, learning about marketing, learning about us, learning about, are we the kind of people they need to work with, and so forth. So I absolutely believe zero moment of truth works everywhere. Any other questions, Dilby? If you have any other questions, just let me know and then post it on the chat. Let me move on, and I guess if you have questions, we'll come back to it. Dilmi, you're going to say something? Okay. The next case is education is a powerful marketing tool. So again, we do a lot of this. I mean, I wrote several books, and some of my books are in PDF format. And actually, I'll be writing a book, which is I'm in the process of writing a book, which is totally targeted to companies that sell to doctors, about how to market to them and so forth. So anybody who's interested, we'll, be glad to send you a copy. So a lot of our books can be purchased from Kindle or, Amazon.com or, various places, or could be received even as PDFs. And we get sometimes in a 24-hour period, 50 book downloads. So a lot of people engage with that content. So I think ebooks, webinars, PDFs, Google Hangouts, these are all amazing ways to use education as a tool, leveraging the internet, and engage, hundreds, if not thousands of people. So I kind of touched on this already, but the zero moment of truth. So the first moment of truth is right here, and then the second moment of truth is when you're talking to the salesperson, and the zero moment of truth happens before the first moment of truth, and that's really where you need to focus, because that's really where people are making up their own minds more and more, leveraging the internet. Um, So the next question is, okay, how do you engage somebody at the zero moment of truth? Really, there is two big answers. One is search engine optimization, shortly referred to as SEO. The second one is automated marketing. And let me kind of talk about both. Now, see, I don't think these ideas are going to be available, applicable to everybody, right? Like, for example, let's talk about search engine optimization. If you are selling gloves, I don't think you should be doing search engine optimizations, because SEO doesn't work when you have massive companies that are so big and powerful you can't compete with them. So gloves is a category that that's so, and also the other reason why you may not want to choose SEO is if you have low margins, because you can't make money using SEO if you're making sense for every purchase. So there might be certain situations where I might say, you know what, don't go with SEO. It's a bad idea. You're going to be wasting your money. In those cases, I would recommend you focus on automated marketing. And let's say SEO is okay for you. I mean, let's assume you're in a category that you can compete and win in, and you have, you have a pretty decent chance. Then you need to really have realistic expectations, a realistic budget, and most importantly, the right team behind you. Because SEO is not you press a button and all of a sudden everything works out. SEO is you or somebody on your behalf has to do a ton of work, in content, in websites, and in links, and many other things. That's key for you to see results. So it's really, really important for you to have realistic expectations, a good budget, and a right team for SEO to work. I'm going to spend a bit more time on SEO. One is, let's look at SEO in depth. So SEO keeps evolving all the time, and we have a team of 105 people in our SEO/internet marketing part of Equa marketing, and so we have experts who are constantly updating what we do. So I can never do justice, unless you give me 5 hours to talk about SEO. And again, even if I do justice today, in 3 months it would be different because things would have evolved by then. But in a nutshell, I think the most important things you need to pay attention to is getting your website set up properly, managing your links, managing your content. So these are things you need to focus on if you want SEO to work. And under links, there is social media links and off-page SEO and so forth. So there's a lot of things you can do to maximize your results with search engine optimization. So when you're setting up a site, I think design is important, not just for search engine optimization, but also from a user conversion standpoint. Because if the site doesn't help me decide in my zero moment of truth that I should choose you versus somebody else, then the site is useless. So one of the key lessons I've noticed people violate is they don't focus on the user, they focus on themselves. They don't ask the question, if somebody is looking for something, like, if for example, if I'm looking for a particular type of car, Lexus 3X, RX 330 or something, and the page that I go to doesn't talk about Lexus but talks about Toyota, the company, I'm going to feel a bit annoyed. So it's really, really important to give people what they came for. So if somebody is saying, I'm interested in gas mileage for a particular car, you know what? First give them the gas mileage information. Don't make them work for what they're looking for, because people don't have patience these days. Again, thanks to the internet and thanks to innovations like the iPhone, they want what they want now. They don't want to have to work for it. Even leaving voicemails, I'm noticing, is less of a trend. If you don't answer the phone, they move on. They don't waste their time leaving a voicemail. They call the next person. So these are the realities we live in. So design is really important, and it has to be done in a way that the people who need stuff can get it quickly. There are a lot of technical things we have to pay attention to: URL, directory structure, link structure, content, and those are also things you need to focus on. When we talk about content, some basic rules: um, 350 plus words, no duplicate content. So don't even have a sentence that's duplicated. Not only should you not copy other people's site even by accident, you should also be very careful in stopping other people from copying your site. So those are things I would strongly recommend you pay attention to if you want SEO. External SEO. So these are the things you can do outside of your website. So there's lots of things. Again, this is evolving. Google, for the very first time, I think last year, started punishing people for utilizing techniques that were, in Google's eyes, spammy or not doing the right thing. So there's a lot of things you have to keep paying attention to. So for example, Google Webmaster Tool allows you to find out what are bad links that your website has from third parties, and you as a webmaster, you have to follow certain rules and certain instructions to go ahead and remove those links. So now again, because this is something we specialize in, we have experts who just do one thing. So even with an external SEO optimization, we have people just focused on blogs, and people just focused on removing bad links, and people just focused on, social bookmarking. And another thing that's really, really, really important these days is NAP. That's your profile on third-party websites, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Google Plus or various websites. And the other key thing is your information has to be consistent. And NAP stands for name, address, and phone number. So again, these are things you have to actively manage. So these are things that we look on behalf of our clients on a monthly basis, and it's key. If you don't do it, again, you're going to get punished, or you're not going to get results from SEO. So this is again a huge concept that I want to spend some time on. People buy, they hate being sold. The 3 a.m. moment or the Starbucks moment. A lot of people don't make a decision. I mean, the vast majority of people, in seconds. Rather, they take days and weeks to think about stuff. And a lot of times it's subconscious. So when they are in that 3 a.m. moment, the Starbucks moment, kind of learning about the topic, figuring things out, you need to show up, and then what they see has to be, consistent, and has to be powerful enough so they choose you versus your competition. And I can spend a lot of time on this, but I am not going to, because I don't have a lot of time. But I just wanted to touch on this because I want you to realize this big difference. Any questions, Dilimi? Do you want to post it, or just let me know, and I will go ahead and answer those questions?
Yes, Naren. Actually, we have a couple of questions from you from our vendors. So one of the questions was from Christopher. He's asking how to find 1 to 3 MD practices looking to implement credible nutrition counseling and weight loss programs. Let me post that to you as well, so you have a view of it.
Right. So the question is how to find 3 MDs who want to implement a nutrition program, right?
Yes.
That was a simple answer, but I'll tell you a story, and maybe this will help. When we first started Equa, what happened was I accidentally spoke to a dentist who I was trying to convince to do something, and he convinced me to help him with his marketing. So when we started, the way we grew this business from literally nothing was to take care of one dentist. And then we focused on making him extremely happy, meaning, in our case, because we are a marketing firm, we could show that he's making a lot of money from us, and, all of that. So that's key. So once we realized that we could actually make it work. So in your case, obviously, your nutrition program has to work for the client, and you have to be able to prove it without an inch of a doubt for that type of client. So let's say you're trying to offer this to a certain type of doctor. First, work with 3 or 1 person. Could be your friend or friend's friend, whoever, and make sure that person is exceptionally happy and that person is within the target market. So if you're only targeting, family doctors, make sure the person you're working with and who loves you is a family doctor. So I think that's step number 1. So in the early days, you have to obviously leverage networks. People to find the first, second, or third, doctors to work with. But then once you have to make them happy, and then you have to create your testimonials and your stories and so forth. And finally, I do believe that you have to somehow get the word out. Getting the word out means, you have to figure out a way to reach, many people, and that's why either you could look at something like automated marketing or SEO. So I wish I had a simple answer, but I can't think of anything else other than, leveraging your network to get the first 1 to 3 people that you want to, make them love your product. Now, entrepreneur.md is a platform that reaches 200,000 doctors. So if you are interested, you could also create a profile on entrepreneur.md and make sure that people know about you. So that's another thing you could, look at. Any other questions?
None so far, Naren. You can move on.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Thank you. So I'm going to focus on the role of the website. So there are a few things that you need to focus on. 2 things. One is the website has to convince people that you are the person right for them. So obviously, don't try to be everything to everybody. Really figure out who your exact target market is. I mean, if you are a company that makes a high-end lasers for a particular particular medical condition, or sorry, particular problem, then let's say fat around the belly, then you know what? Be that and communicate that with testimonials, written video testimonials, and again, get third-party reviews. Again, by having a profile on Entrepreneur.md, you could encourage your happy patients to do reviews for you. So I do think that's one function of the website, which is to convince people or make it easy for them to say yes. The second function of the website is education. So that means videos, articles, newsletters, webinars. So constantly keep educating and helping your audience, because the more you educate and the more you help them and the more they believe your education, the easier it's going to become to cultivate a large number of doctors who are listening to you, but also for you to convert them when the time is right. Because the power of online anything is that you can do it times 3,000 without hiring 30 salespeople. All right, so it's extremely powerful. So 2 people in a garage can have the same impact that a large company with 500 people can have in these days. Another key thing that I want to mention is we talked about reviews. Web-centric world truly rewards companies that truly care about their customers. I mean, so I know some clients or some people, I mean, they think, reputation is something they have to pay attention to because, if not, they'll get punished. But I do think they need to change their mindset to say, you know what, I'm going to take this seriously. I'm going to pay attention to this. I'm going to listen to what my clients are saying because I want my clients to love me. Obviously, if a client is not a good fit, tell them so and get rid of them. But the ones who are a good fit, you need to make sure they love you. And I think it's a lot more important today than it ever was, because information is so freely available. Only 2 people who are unhappy with you can do a ton of damage to your business. So I think the mindset has to change, to focus on customers and focus on them loving you, if that's not already the case. Because I do think it's very hard to survive and thrive in today's world if you don't have that mindset. So one way to do that is a tool we used called NPS, which stands for Net Promoter Score. All the corporations use it, from Apple to you name it, and they're fanatic about it. And it's a very simple technique. So you ask a 1-question survey. It's a single question survey. It says on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you are willing to refer us to your friends, where do we stand? And so somebody says, you are a 7, or you are a 9, or you are an 8. Typically, the science says that if you are a 9, if they give you a 9 or a 10, they are a promoter. They love you. If they gave you a 7 or an 8, they are what's called a passive, meaning they are neither here nor there. If they give you anything less than 7, which means 1 to 6, that means they hate you. But they haven't switched yet because they feel switching is painful. So the science says that figure out who are your promoters, who are your detractors, who are your passives. If they are a promoter, you know what? Have them help you, have them do testimonials for you, have them introduce you to people, leverage them. If they are a detractor, then there could be one or two reasons. You messed up, or they're not a good fit. If they're not a good fit, have that conversation and move on, because in today's world, trying to pander to clients who are not good fits doesn't work anymore. But if you messed up, then I think you have to take responsibility, say sorry, do whatever needs to be done, and fix it. So I do think you have to deal with it. Now, you will also, the second question that a lot of people do ask is, okay, explain your score. So if you told me that I'm a 9, tell me why I'm a 9. So you know what attracted them, what made the difference for them. Again, if they told you that you are a 6, ask them why you are a 6. So it's a very powerful survey, because you're not putting words in your customer's mouth, you're not having them fill out 15 questions. It's 2 questions. What's our score, where do we stand, and then tell us why you felt the way you felt. Now, the second question is also extremely important, because it helps you figure out where to focus. So if a lot of people are saying they are giving you a 6 because they can't get a hold of somebody when they need to, you know what? You have a problem. You need to fix it. So I do think this is a tool that you could easily implement. And if you have any questions, you can email it to us, and we'll send you some resources you can look up. But just Google Net Promoter Score, and you will learn a lot about it. So promoters, detractors, passives. Now NPS, the calculation is promoters minus detractors as a percentage. So you ignore your passives, because passives are neither here nor there. So you pay attention to your promoters and detractors. So if you have more promoters than detractors, you will have a positive score, meaning your NPS will be greater than 0. So greater than 0 meaning, theoretically speaking, your business should be growing. But companies like Apple, some of their products, they have NPS scores of 70. So that means 90% of their customers love them, and maybe 10 or 20% of their customers don't love them as much. So that's really important. Do people believe in third-party reviews? That's a question I always get. Absolutely they do, because they feel that the crowd is more powerful, because the crowd is comprehensive, right, as opposed to one person's opinion. So I do think third-party reviews are very powerful. Mobile websites. Let me talk about the basics around mobile websites. Few things you need to pay attention to. One, it is important. Don't ignore it. So don't create an app unless there are a couple of reasons why you want to. So I'll get into that in a bit. But at least have a mobile website. Everyone should have a mobile website. What do I mean by saying you need to have a mobile website? That means your regular website has to work perfectly on a mobile phone. So the information should be the same, but that information should be presented in a smaller screen. So there's a technology called responsive mobile sites. So again, work with your marketing company to make sure that your site is built in a way that is responsive. Next question is, should you develop an app? Before I get into that, let me just touch on mobile websites. So how do you test a mobile responsive site? Open up different screens, an iPad screen and an iPhone screen. See how it looks. I mean, does this menus and everything else change to fit the smaller screen? Because in a big screen, when in a smaller screen, you don't want people squinting their eyes and trying to read stuff. Now, should you develop an app? I think there's only 3 reasons why you want to develop an app. One is it makes it easy for clients to work with your firm. So for example, I go to a gym. You know what? They have an app that tells me all the times they have classes, and when is their swimming pool open, and so forth and so forth. They make it easy for me to use that app, because now I don't have to go to their website or call somebody. I have the app in my phone, and anytime I can look it up, and if I feel like going to the gym, I can go and participate in the activity that I'm interested in. So that's one reason why you may want to develop an app, because it makes it easy for your clients to do business with you. The second reason is it allows them to get more value from you. So for example, we do call tracking for our clients. So, telling clients that a call was missed on the iPhone immediately is valuable, because now I can do something about it. So even though we are providing the same service, now our clients get more value because they get instant feedback through their mobile device about something that they could perhaps look into. Now, the third reason why you may want to develop an app is because you want to with that client. So, but again, you have to do your research, you have to do your business case and figure out, if there's a need and if your clients will buy it and whether you can do a good job and so forth, and then go ahead and do it. Now, so don't create an app for the sake of creating an app because it's wasting everybody's time and it's probably annoying people. So only do it if you can do a good job at it. There's a compelling reason to do it. The question I get asked is, should we use iOS if you're going to do an app, or should we use Android? I think if your target market is a US, I would absolutely recommend iOS first because two reasons. 45% of the phones sold are made by a single company, Apple, versus Android is made by so many companies. That's in the US. Second reason is when you look at people with high income, so obviously doctors come into this bracket, that Apple's market share is much, much higher. I think it's almost 60-70% as you go up and up in income brackets. So if your target market is the US, I would strongly recommend you go to iOS first. Now, if you are global and your primary market, your first market is outside of the US, then obviously I think you should look at Android, but again, it depends on which country you are in. So I would look into the exact country and see, people who are making more than a certain amount of money under which doctors would fall. What's the most popular operating system for that demographic? Let's talk about social media, and again, I'm going to start with some examples. Allspice, I kind of talked about this. They have 2,620,000 people who like them. That means anytime they post something on their Facebook page, those 2,620,000 people see it in their newsfeed. Now, those 2,620,000 people, every time when they see something, could engage. They could share it with their friends, they could comment on it, they could like it. Every time they do that, again, all of their friends see it. So let's say Allspice posts a funny commercial, let's say 5,000 people did something. Now 5,000 and every one of their friends. So each person on average, let's say, has 300 friends. So that's 5,000 times 300, which turns into, what's the number? 1.5 million, I think. So 1.5 million people will see that commercial just through viral marketing using Allspice's Facebook page. I mean, that's a lot of people. Now, out of that 1.5 million, again, if, a very small number. So again, if it's using the same metric, 1 out of, what did I say? Out of 2.5 million, I said 5,000. So, so what is that? I guess 1 out of 500 or something. So even if the same, only 1 out of 500 people do something, now again, that will reach another million people and so forth. So that's the power of viral marketing. So all of a sudden, for no money, they're able to reach those people. Now, what did we learn looking at social media? Nobody even knows what's in Allspice products. They never talk about it, just like Nike never talks about their shoes. But they really focus on getting as many people to enjoy those commercials, and through that, they get their name out there. So Zappos, another famous brand. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. It was purchased by $1 billion, and that was like several years ago. So they're probably a lot bigger today than they used to be. They have around 100,000 people on their Facebook. 1.5 million people on their Facebook page who have liked them. And they focus on the idea of customer service. So their Facebook is all about giving customers new information about, here's a new bag, the shoes we are introducing, and so forth. And and dealing with customer, like doing things to really help customers. So if anybody has a question, anybody has a concern, they are on it immediately, and they really make sure that not only do they take care of that one person, but the entire world knows that they're taking care of things, because their whole marketing is all about customer service. So whatever your angle is that you think will work for your social media, figure it out, and then stick with it day in and day out, and work on it. Don't try to just make this blank page that you post all kinds of stuff on. Community coffee, another example, they celebrate coffee, so they give awards and they send out, have people get free samples and all kinds of stuff to really appeal to the people who appreciate coffee. So they use contests and trivia and so forth. So again, they have an angle. So the question you need to ask yourself is: A, is social media right for you? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not one of your priorities, because maybe you have bigger fish to fry when it comes to internet marketing. If that is the case, don't have a page for the sake of having it. Put it down your priority list. And then figure out, what is your perspective? Do you have a perspective? Who are you? What makes you unique? And your social media has to be an extension of that. And then, are you going to be sticking with it? And are you sticking with that perspective? And are you actively working on it? So, it's not just you create it and you forget about it and then you say, oh, what's going on? But rather, you as one of the key leaders in the company, are you checking on it? Are you making sure it's happening? And now, what we do for our clients is we help figure out what this is and then we help implement it. Any questions so far, Dilmi? Why don't I skip and finish the rest of the slides and we'll answer?
Yes, Naren. We've got one question from...
Dilmi, let me finish the slides and we'll go through the question. Right?
Yes, that sounds good, Naren. Please go ahead.
Automated marketing. So this is where you develop large databases and build relationships. So what are you doing to get hundreds of people to engage with you? So one of the things that entrepreneur.md has been able to do is to help sponsors, people who are sponsoring certain sections, get in front of, let's say 20,000 dermatologists again and again and again, piggybacking on one of the sections like ideas. So now they're in front of 20,000 doctors, 2 times a month for a whole year. Now, out of those 20,000 people, if they have interesting things to engage with, maybe infographics, maybe books, maybe various types of additional things that people could sign up for and get for free. Now you're starting to build a database. That's how Equa built a database of 9,000 people. Is by leveraging entrepreneur.md and using things like free books and webinars and things like that. So it's a very powerful way to really build a large database. I mean, you don't have to work with entrepreneur.md. You could work with other people, but really figure out how can you get in front of many people who are your target audience, and how do you get them to want to sign up with you, whether through a book download or something. And there are millions of ideas, right? I'm simplifying it. Obviously, it doesn't have to be a book download. It could be lots and lots of other ideas. And once you have the database, don't keep selling to them. Rather, keep nurturing them and helping them. Give them articles, give them videos, give them content, give them things that they would appreciate and want to say thank you to you for. And keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. And once in a while, maybe every third or fourth time, then you could just tease your product or tease something you're doing. So usually the rule is 80% has to be about them and less than 20% has to be about you. And it has to be opt-in, right? So when you give a book, they are opting in to receive newsletters from you. A lot of people will say, yes, no problem. I would also love to receive newsletters from you about a particular topic. And measure everything. And this is where analytics is becoming very, very important. Google Analytics is extremely important. You spend some time or get somebody who really understands. And again, Google Analytics will keep changing, so you have to keep evolving with it. Your automated marketing tool will have a lot of analytics. Leverage that. Your CRM tools will have analytics. Leverage that. And pay attention. So you as the senior management team, I think, has to be part of discussions weekly, monthly, to really figure out what's going on, really understand what's happening under the covers. Because if you don't understand what's going on, you can't improve it. And in the marketing world that we live in today, I do believe it's all about connecting the dots. It's all about the zero moment of truth, understanding people are buying versus being sold. Working on SEO if that's right for you, working on social media if that's right for you, working on automated marketing if that's right for you, and then putting all of it together and using analytics, connecting the dots. So I do think, for the right company, this could be extremely powerful. It doesn't matter how big you are or how much of a budget you have. But you have to understand it's a different paradigm, and you have to work within that paradigm. You can't take your old ideas and apply it here and expect results. So, go ahead with your questions.
Great. We've got a few questions from our registered vendors. So what I'm going to do is I have put up the questions on the Q&A section. If you could also take a look. So let me address that now. Should marketing materials to physicians look more consumer-centric today versus more sterile or clinical as in the past?
No, I do think they have to focus on the clinical side because doctors are interested in the clinical side, right? So I do think you don't want to do less of it. However, a lot of times when a doctor, especially the doctors in cash pay medicine, let's say dermatologists, plastic surgeons, and so forth, are buying a laser or subscribing to a system, even whether it's that nutritional business idea, they're doing it partly also to make money. So you could really make it easy for them. So you could create graphics, you could create videos, they can put on their websites, they could share with their patients. So, because remember, you have to help them achieve the results that you claim you can actually help them achieve. So I think, so from that standpoint of view, obviously all the marketing material you give to your clients to use should be consumer focused. And I know some companies go the extra mile and even create mini websites and do all kinds of things to help their doctor clients, make more from that particular laser or more from that particular, product. Next question.
Yes, brilliant, Naren. So I've got a very interesting question for you. One of our vendors is asking, what are the top 3 changes you see coming in the next 3 years? That's a toughie.
Yeah, I do think fundamentally, looking at the 10,000-foot view, I do think computers becoming part of our lives is going to become more real. So I think that's a huge change. Like I was giving that example of things to do. Google will give 5 different answers depending on whether it's raining and depending on what your interests are and all that type of stuff. So I do think understanding the world that we are moving into, as consumers, as people, is key, because then you can play accordingly and you can leverage accordingly and get the most out of it. The second thing I think is that the prices of sensors are so cheap that it's becoming part of everything people do. So the Nest was one of the early adapters, but I do think we are getting into this age of Internet of Everything. So all your devices will be talking to each other and connected and so forth. So I think if you are a device manufacturer, you need to start thinking along those lines and connecting with mobile and apps and so forth, so your doctors can get most out of your technologies. And finally, I do think the biggest insight for me is you don't need to be a big company anymore to succeed. Actually, being a big company could be a disadvantage. So only thing is you have to really understand the internet and really take the time to work with the right people, and then obviously have a game plan that helps you get a competitive advantage. So I do think it's a great news, but it's only for those people who pay attention and who really get the most out of the web-centric world we live in.
Brilliant. So we've got another one from John. Sorry. Okay. So what are the top, sorry, actually I just answered that, you just answered that question. Let me move on to the next one. We've got one from Kim. What is preferred to initiate the sales process? Is it email contact, booked appointment contact, or phone contacts?
I'm sorry, what's the question? What is
the preferred method to initiate the sales process? So she's asking whether it's email, booked appointments, or phone contacts.
Yeah, you mean with a prospective client, right? So yeah. I think okay, I'll share with you our experience. We think of marketing in 2 ways. This is for Equa marketing, right? One is we want people to call us. So for people to call us, we have to focus on a bunch of things. One is our reputation. So we really focus on how much positive feedback we get. So with 200 clients, last month we got 220 positive feedback. Now a lot of that feedback is shared immediately on our website, so everybody can see it. Obviously, for privacy reasons, we'll take out certain information and so forth. but we really focus on making our clients love us and then sharing that. And that creates a lot of benefit from us because it creates word of mouth. Also, when people who are researching us, when they go to check us out, they're like, amazed by our focus on making our clients love us. The second thing we do when it comes to getting the phone to ring is, publishing on magazines and, other places, including, entrepreneur.md. Like, you can be an expert, by the way, if you have something very interesting to say on entrepreneur.md. So that's another way to build credibility and, get people to call you. In our business, it's easy, but I'm not sure if it's going to apply to other businesses. Like, we do marketing for doctors, so all of the websites, all of the marketing we do will say powered by equa.com. So in those cases, we are getting, literally thousands and thousands of people, instances where our name is mentioned all over the internet. So when somebody sees us doing a good job, they call us because they see it. So that's kind of one of the ideas. The second idea is what I call automated marketing. So my first advice is figure out how do you make the phone ring, and then invest on those things long term so the phone rings more and more and more and more. The second advice is, again, from our experience with Equa, is automated marketing. So if you have a book, if you have infographics, if you have webinars, use that as a tool and partner with people, and get those people to, like, let's say you're partnering with somebody like entrepreneur.md and reaching 20,000 doctors, offer to those doctors a book download, offer to those doctors a webinar. And, it's a really great way for you to, start building your database. Now, remember, the people who in your database who downloaded a book are not going to buy from you tomorrow. They didn't say, I want a $50,000 laser. They said, I wanted a free book. So you have to keep that in mind. But over time, you could nurture them and you could grow them, because obviously if they're not interested in a particular type of laser, they wouldn't have bought that book, right? So that's where, communicating with them on an ongoing basis. Now, if you look at entrepreneur.md, the main website, and you go to industry.entrepreneur.md, there are a lot of free resources that you could take and share with your clients, because remember, your business is to help clients. Your business is to think about their success. The more you do that, the more your business thrives. So, for example, we have news widgets. So you want to share industry news with your doctors, grab our widget and use it. It doesn't cost you a cent. You want to share a lot of the videos we have been able to create with the help of like 50 experts. Take it and use it. We don't care. As long as it helps somebody and use our original video without editing it. We are fine. So there are a lot of tools you can get from industry.entrepreneur.md that you can use to help people, give them information, give them tools, and so forth. We have an events calendar. Share that events calendar with people so they don't have to go and figure out all the meetings. They have it in one place. So any meeting they can imagine, it's in one place. They can grab it and see if they're interested in attending. Focus on helping people. Go ahead.
Okay, so we've got another important question from James. What do doctors like to learn about online, and how do they respond to different media, whether it's text, audio, video, infographics, and at what point do they prefer to speak directly to the vendor?
Yes, obviously people are different. I find that everybody is going through the zero moment of truth. So for some people, it might be 2 pieces of information. For others, it might be 10. And for some, it might be 2 weeks. And for others, it might be, 6 months. So it's very hard to generalize in that sense. But in terms of what's effective, I do think videos are the most effective. So that would be the number one thing on my list. What type of videos? Obviously, educational videos, science-based videos, talking about the science, and obviously, ideally, with the help of other, renowned doctors, would have the most credibility. Next, I would say, is infographics. And infographics has to be done well. It has to really educate. So in 2 minutes, somebody has to learn something by looking at the infographic. And we track everything, and we track all the numbers. So those two are, in my opinion, the number one and number two. Was there a second part of that question, Dilimi?
Yes. He was asking, at what point do they prefer to speak directly to the vendor? Right.
So in a lot of times they would call us. So we try to make sure that the phone number is easily visible, and and that somebody's going to answer the phone. And like I was saying before, sometimes it's, for some people it could be 2 weeks, some people it could be 6 months. It all depends on the person and how much information they need to go through before they're willing to pull the trigger and want to talk to somebody. keep going.
Okay, great. So we've got another question. How to get through to Chinese customers?
You know what? I don't know the answer for that. I'm sorry.
That was a toughie. Okay, so let's move on to what is the best approach to make content customer or human-centric rather than product-centric?
You know, that's a great question. I think that's what we all struggle with as marketers. I think telling stories is one way to really make it human-centric as opposed to just sharing numbers. Because I think at the end of the day, we are all humans, which means most of us make decisions using emotions as opposed to only logic. So I think telling stories, videos, those types of things, I think are a lot more powerful than, facts and numbers, because I don't think those really work, especially where you're not speaking to them face to face, but rather they're on their own, engaging with your content and then using that to choose a particular company. Keep going.
All right. So the next one is, what are the preferred types of content that surgeons prefer to consume when a new product becomes available?
Right. I think news blasts could be very useful. So entrepreneur.md, for example, has a news wire. So, some companies, take advantage of that. So that's something you may want to check out, because I think, you need to let people know there is this new device, new, medicine. Obviously, those have to be backed up by science, because they are obviously interested in that. So you may want to link to those type of information, whether it's a video with a doctor talking about a product, or whether it's some kind of a research study, talking about the benefits of the product and so forth. So in addition to Newswire, I think you need to get in front of doctors. So if you're targeting dermatologists, figure out a way to how to get in front of 20,000 derms. So we have newsletters that reach I think 16,000 derms. So as an example, but as you probably know, entrepreneur.md caters to 9 different types of doctors, and we reach around 200,000 doctors. So I mean, there are other platforms like entrepreneur.md, I'm sure, that you could also look into. So I think there are a lot of ways for you to reach a lot of doctors and tell your story. And when you're telling the story, use science, use other expert doctors to, make your case.
Naren, now that you mentioned email blast, we've got a question that asks, when to email blast during conferences or throughout the year to gain attention and build your brand, or to become an annoyance? I'm not sure exactly what he meant.
Right. No, I think it's a good question. In terms of email blast, I kind of shy away from solo email blast, because it's all about me. Right? So email has to be ideally educational and useful. So typically, focus. I mean, if you were to write a newsletter type email and have 3 or 4 points you're making, and hopefully 80% of those points are something they read and say, yeah, you know what, this was useful. I got value from this. Could be a short video clip, or could be, something that they would feel good about having spent the time reading or watching. And then 20% of that time could be spent, offering them a free book or offering them something that might start the engagement process. Keep going.
Okay, Naren. Where do surgeons primarily look for product information? Is another question.
What's the question?
Where do surgeons primarily look for product information?
I mean, like all of us, they're starting to Google, right? I mean, because Google is like the place you go to when you want information, and there are hundreds or thousands of sites and places out there. So I think that's one place they go for, and they're comfortable with certain publications like entrepreneur.md. I think is seen, is read every month by more than 10,000 doctors. So obviously, what we notice is the same doctors keep coming back and reading things. So once they get comfortable with the brand, they read things from that brand, just like people read the Wall Street Journal like religion. So obviously you could look into brands that have a large following and that really people want to read. And I think that's another way to target.
Great. So our last question for today's session is, in the new healthcare paradigm, do surgeons want to know about how a product can save their hospital money?
Right. I don't want to get into that because that's not my expertise. I mean, Entrepreneur.md, for example, was specifically created to help doctors in private practice or small group practices, not to help hospitals. So I'm not an expert in that particular topic, so I have to pass.
All right, then, Naren, we have answered all our questions that were provided to us by our registered vendors. It was brilliant having you on board, Naren, tonight, and it was very insightful, I'm sure. But thank you for having us give you this platform.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, Lumi, and I'm hopeful that people get some value from it. And if they have any further questions, they could email myself directly, or call the helpline. My email is naren@entrepreneur.md. Naren is spelled N as in Nancy, Aren. Again, as Nancy at entrepreneur.md. Thank you. Have a nice day.
All right. Thanks, Naren. Have a nice day.
Bye.